we're ready. Not sure. Like I said, two-hour Zoom meeting yesterday worked fine. Who knows? Okay, ready to go?
Yes.
I can't see who all's there, but here we go. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. We are at here. Sherry, could you take a roll call, please?
Chair Akins?
Here.
Commissioner Condrey?
Here.
Commissioner James?
Here.
Commissioner McHatton?
Here.
And we have one vacancy. And thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. Okay, public communications. Don't know if we have any of those, but I'll read it.
Should we do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Brian, is the public Craig?
Yes.
Well, maybe not. So pin for bigger view. Okay, if you all stand and join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge
Allegiance
to the
flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for
which it stands,
one nation, under
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
I think it's indivisible first, isn't it? Isn't it one nation? Is it one nation under God or one nation indivisible?
One under God, indivisible, with liberty and for all.
How could I forget that?
Yeah, I mean, you should hear a bunch of second graders doing this. Okay, public communications. Public communications submitted by email will be provided to the Historic Preservation Commission at this time. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the commission and will generally be referred to staff and or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. Okay, museum representative report. The museum has a brand new exhibit that is will open when we get back to red, which in talking with James, we could be days, could be soon. So there, it's called Ojai, Master Photographers. It has the photographic work of people like J.C. Brewster, Horace Bristol, Guy Webster, Cindy Pitu Burton. Hope I get the middle name correct. Joe Sohm, Donna Granada. It is also with the last exhibit that we did, and with this exhibit, we have the exhibit currently online. It can be found at the OhioValleyMuseum.org. So that will give you a preview to when we can actually finally see it in person, going through all the standard COVID displays. The museum was open for, I think, 3 weeks back in the fall, and then it closed down again. But it's I got to see it yesterday when I was in the museum. It is amazing.
Let him in and say, we got you. No, you're going to be in the waiting room.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, anyway, that's the museum report. The next item are the minutes. Does anybody have comments on the minutes?
The item that
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward.
Well, I do have a change. In the very first line, it says the regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I'm not, and we're not the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where does it say that?
Good point.
It's the very first line.
So,
do you see that, Sherry?
I'm looking. What page?
Very first page of the minutes.
Oh, the minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll fix it. No problem. My apologies.
And let's see, so, okay, so it says, now it says, let's see, will be called to order by the chair on Thursday, January 14th. And then, but we talk about the date on call to order October 8th. Is that just because we had that lag between meetings?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the only change that I saw then was that change of changing our planning commission to historic preservation. And if there aren't any other changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay,
Did you make the motion or did you second it?
did someone, I didn't make the motion. I was looking for somebody to
Oh, I
make.
thought you made the motion. I'm sorry. Okay. And I will make the motion to approve the minutes.
I'll
Great.
second it. I second.
Thank you,
Okay.
and I'll make that change. Thanks for pointing it out.
Okay, can I just do an all in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, voting is unanimous.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, the next discussion item, we'll turn it over to Lucas, if he would share this with us, please.
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, commissioners. The item you have before you is a sign permit for pennants being displayed for the Pixie Tangerine month, which is running from April 1st to May 1st. Typically, these pennants are really only up for 2 weeks, pursuant to the policy that we have in place. However, they've asked for an additional 2 weeks this year, a little unusual. However, and typically the Ojai tennis tournament takes up the last half of April with their pennants up for 2 weeks. But that tournament has unfortunately been canceled. That was just announced a few weeks ago. So because of that cancellation, we have the Pixies looking to take advantage of that and have it up for a little bit longer. Looking for confirmation from the commission tonight as to whether or not that's something that would be supported. If so, we can move forward with that. The interesting thing is typically when these pennants come forward for the first time, they do come before this commission for review. And these pennants have actually been before the commission on a couple different occasions. I believe it was 2016 the first time, and then again in 2019 is what I think I have in the report here. 2014 and then 2019. My apologies. So really what staff is looking for tonight is discussion regarding these pennants and any questions that the commission may have, and or even any concerns that have been raised. So with that,
I have a comment.
Sure.
I don't mind them being up for the whole month because the tennis tournament is not happening this year. So they're filling that gap. That's what I understood from their report. But I just want it on the record that I don't think it should be a precedent. You know, I mean, it does sort of set a precedent, but I do feel like it should be noted that it's a special circumstances and they shouldn't anticipate having the pennants up just because they got to do it this year for, I think we need to make sure that we're addressing that.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Other people have comments? Other commissioners?
Yeah. I really like the design. I don't remember if that's what they had last year, but I think everything about the pennants, other than, the extra 2 weeks, are very well done. And I agree with the extra 2 weeks.
Gina, do you have any comments?
No, I like the pennant. I think it's important to support our Ojai Pixies.
Oh,
And we're not doing the tennis tournament, so it does make sense to keep it up for the month.
Yeah.
Good for business.
great, thank you all. So I have a couple questions. Lucas, do we generally have the spaces booked for every week of the year?
No, not every week of the year. There's typically about 10 different events up to 10 different events that we could have in line and saved for. This one just happens to be back-to-back weeks or multiple weeks here in terms of the tennis tournament and the Pixie. Well, I guess it's really the Pixie Tangerine Pennant celebration.
Okay, so what I'm worried about the most is, so we have this convenient break because they're back to back, but we have gaps elsewhere where there's 2 weeks that are assigned and then 2 weeks that are open in between other events. And what would keep the other organizations from saying, well, can we expand ours from 2 weeks to a month? Since
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
pennant up.
I think it go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that this is not an event, so it's a little different. It's not event specific. It's celebrating the Pixie. So it kind of makes the argument to do it for the whole month rather than if it was for an event specific.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Gina. It's not a commercial endeavor. It's not a sales thing. It's sort of a celebration of the valley. And the valley needs it, boy, because it's turning into just like a big drunken brawl down on the Ojai Avenue on the weekends.
Yeah.
We've all seen. So, it's nice to have something that doesn't have to do with alcohol.
Right.
Okay, so, well, I guess the question I have, so initially when the Pixie people came to the HPC to put their pennants up, the rule I think was that the pennants are to represent an event. And so they were initially turned down on their Pixie sign. And then eventually, Cindy can correct me if I'm wrong. Then the next year, we went and allowed them to have a sign, even though they didn't have an event attached to it. So I'm wondering if we're now moved to where we're saying, okay, because it's not an event, it's just it's doing a great thing. I'm not disagreeing with it. Are we now giving preference to non-events over events?
Well, Brian, I think it's a special circumstances with COVID because, there is sort of a feeling that we haven't been able to celebrate. We haven't had Ojai Day. We haven't been able to celebrate the Valley. And when the Pixies first really started coming along into public consciousness, when they had and I think it might have been 2005, they had a naming thing for kids in school to name the Pixies. And they came up with this neat, petite, great to eat little slogan, and they made bumper stickers, so they started making it really something to celebrate about the Valley rather than a commercial event. I guess that's what I was trying to get to, Lucas, when I said I just wanted to make sure that this was a special circumstance. And I do feel like our town needs to celebrate something that's special about our town. That's not about tourists piling in or, the new pizza place or whatever thing is happening, whatever commercial thing is happening. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
So I think if we just very clear that this is a one-time special, quarantine is almost over, let's celebrate our Pixies kind of a vibe. So, you know what I mean? I think, Jana, I don't know, you with me?
Yes. Yeah, and that vitamin C can only help you be healthy, right?
Yeah, I don't want to see pennants all through the arcade, ad nauseum for whatever anyone's planning to sell in the future. But, and it is a month. Pixie month is a month. Maybe that's the other thing that's making me feel like they could be up for a month, because April is Pixie month. Makes sense, right? Did it even say Pixie month? Maybe I didn't look. Let me look.
Well,
you're correct.
So
Yeah.
but it is essentially one time, fingers crossed, exception, because of course next year the tennis tournament will be back and they'll get their other 2 weeks of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think, Brian, you have to worry about the Pixies, demanding this because they can only do it in April. That is Pixie month. And when the tennis tournament comes back, which it will, they can't claim, some kind of eminent domain on the pennants for a month because they got to do it once. And we have this discussion, so we have it on the record. But I do think it's good for the town to have some kind of identity.
Kind of an iconic identity. Yeah.
Yeah, something going on because we haven't really had that. All we've had is tourists coming in, getting drunk all weekend,
Yeah.
parking and doing whatever things they do.
At the end, as I'm seeing the conversation go, the commission can certainly make a point or even a motion that identifies that this is maybe like this is not an event specific or non-precedent setting, a one-time, call it a one-time exception to the rule here or to the policy. And that way it's being very clear, it's on the record, it's in the minutes even, for future considerations of any other events that have pennants up.
And we call it a
Okay.
one-time exception due to COVID restrictions, due to COVID issues.
I think that would be even
really what it is,
right, and that's really that's very true.
So we should add that to the notes or the minutes going forward.
Yeah, to the motion.
The motion.
To the motion, yes.
Yeah, because again, going back to what you initially said, Cindy, and going back to just, the way I've been in the positions I've been in. And this is, both of these things are that it will be 2 weeks and that it will be gone the day after the event finishes and our code things. And once you make an exception to the rule, you have no rule.
Yeah.
And in this case, there's very much a way to, as all of you have said in your discussions, to set this as a one-time exception due to the circumstances we find ourselves in.
And I'd like to put the wording in there, Brian, that it's not an event, because the next thing I see is that the music festival is going to want their pennants up for a month. But they're specifically an event, a commercial event, So I think it needs to be that it is not an event specific. It's a celebration of, the valley itself, and it's not a commercial situation. And it is COVID specific.
Yep. Nope. That all makes sense. Look, since you guys are the ones that are gonna have to deal with people wanting to get their own exception, does everything that Cindy just shared with us, John, with what you as a city official would, because you'll be the enforcer.
Yeah, I think all that makes sense. That's one of the reasons why we brought it before the commission to iron out some of this, to make it clear that this is an exception and not the rule moving forward.
Great. Okay. Any other comments? Then Cindy, would you like to make that motion for us, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we agree to allow the pennants up for the month of April because it is specifically Pixie month and it is not an event, and that it is a COVID related issue, that they have their 4 weeks available to them on a one-time only basis for a non-event. Did I say it all, Lucas?
Yep.
I'll
Celebration.
second
I would say
that.
adding in a celebration of the valley is probably the only other thing.
That's good.
Yeah, as a celebration of the valley coming out of its restrictive situation.
Yes.
Great.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Sherry, you want to call the roll, please?
Of course. Chair Akins,
Yes.
Commissioner Condrey,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McHatton.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Before we go any further, again, I can only see one at a time, but I think, well, I still had it on my monitor. I think Councilman Wyrick is with us. Is that true?
Looks like it.
I am, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to acknowledge that you were with us and thank you for attending our meeting.
Always interested. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just trying to stay in the background, so I have my camera off.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got some real good practice at that last night.
Yeah. And again, Brian, I thought you were very articulate.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I was stumbling around going, okay, Bill, Souza, answer.
We can't. But I did got in the chat room. I hope I explained in the chat room.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay, next item is for the Downtown Historic District. And I'll turn it over to staff to begin with. Lucas, anything that you want to add?
I don't necessarily have anything to add, but I am sharing my screen. Everybody should see this now.
Uh-huh.
Want me to talk about it?
I will hand this over to Commissioner McHatton, and I believe we have someone in the waiting room that we can bring in now as well. Is Craig Walker out there?
Yes. So the first thing, Sherry, it still has Cindy's name listed on the ad hoc. Can we get her name off of there?
Yes, I saw that too.
Yes.
And Craig should be added, I believe.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, for sure.
It's under recommendation.
You got it. Hold on, trying
Oh,
to
that's true. Yeah, that does need to be revised. Thank you for that catch.
hold on. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, Craig's admitted.
Okay, so we've been working on different versions of a map for quite some time, for over a year now, and we started using this map, which was given to me by Suzanne. How do you say her last name? Riegel?
Riegel?
Yes. And then I looked at many different maps that I got from different sources, and they all had the same sort of look, which you can see through the arcade how it's
Way here of some kind.
kind of a strange design that we all seem to follow, but when you're looking at actual store locations, those little lines in the arcade don't always match up to the actual stores. It's more by property numbers, not as much by store numbers. So I just wanted to tell you that the reason why we decided to stick with it is so we're all looking at the same maps that have been the design guidelines, the same maps that have represented Ojai and other things have used the same sort of look. So we're sticking with it just to lessen confusion. What we decided on was, this is our 100th anniversary for the city of Ojai. And so it'd be a fantastic year to have our downtown historic district become official. But we also understand that we're in the middle of COVID, and the city, as far as financially, would not be able to do the full-on intention of what a downtown district could be. So we started looking at it as what it could be right now. And what we decided on was the orange properties are either city, county, state, or federal landmarks. And we numbered them in the 100s. So we can add or delete as we had other property. We had the city hall included at the time. So we just kind of wanted to have a number system that we could take away and add as we went. And so all of that is in orange are already landmark buildings. So they already have reports. We already know everything about them, why they're historic. And then there's the 200s, which are the yellow buildings, and those are contributing. Those buildings, we started with all the grays and the yellows on a document, trying to decide what actually has historic value to our city right now in the areas of the years of interest, and with Libby's idea of what the city was going to be. And we decided that if we couldn't justify, we didn't have the backup, we didn't have some sort of report, some sort of history. It's not in our historians haven't put it in the books. We were going to put it in gray and just call it a day. And so the buildings that remain are significantly historic. They're either on our list, merit list. It's in our books. It's common knowledge. You'd see by looking at the ones that are left. And so we have a working document that lists the what it was, what it is, the address, the architect, the why it's significant, and then the reports, the information that we have gathered. And we still have a couple of spots that we're still working on. We brought in other historians. We brought in Elise. If she can't come up with something, well, that's probably doesn't exist, but we also have Terry Hill on tap, or he said he would also contribute if we needed him to as well. So we're trying to get it down to anchor the district to look like this shape and anchor it to where it's contributing properties, which are both the orange, which are landmarks, the yellow, which are historically significant, and then the gray that just are part of the downtown district. And then because every property in the yellow and the contributing that is not landmarked, we want it to be significant enough with links and information to cut down on any hours that the city would have to spend trying to justify why we are wanting to have that be part of the district. So we're trying to do this as frugally as we can, understanding that it's both it's COVID year and it's our 100th anniversary. So there's a lot of compromise. There was a lot of work. We're still working on this document. It should be ready to share with the commissioners next month's meeting. We just wanted to make sure we have all the links linked so we can answer more questions. But hopefully this will give you an idea what we've been working on and how we're working on it.
Gina, did you want to talk about the spreadsheet background on that, or did you want to have Craig talk about that?
Is Craig on here?
He is.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, how are you? How is everyone?
Good.
Great.
Doing well.
What would you like me to talk about? I'm sorry.
Craig, would you like to just give a quick overview of the spreadsheet that you and Gina have been working on that goes with the numbers that Gina has assigned to these different colors?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, as Gina pointed out, we started out with all the buildings that were already landmarked either by the county or the city, and put those in the orange. And then those are all ones that are reviewed by the city anyway, because they come to you for any alterations or any reviews. And then we took the ones, as she pointed out, that are historically significant, and those would probably all have to be reviewed by the HPC anyway because of CEQA having to submit historically significant buildings. And then the gray buildings are the non-contributing that are in the boundaries. And so anyway, we just took them one by one and tried to build some information about what they're named now and what they were originally, and maybe a little bit about their journey over the years. And let's see, then we put what resources. Now, a lot of them have a lot more resources than we put in the spreadsheet, but we wanted to put at least enough to give you the idea that these are historic. They're in the history books of Ojai. They're part of the story of Ojai. And we tried to also list why they are contributing. Some of them have one that says that they're an RSOM, an HPC RSOM. And that was from back when we formed a subcommittee. I think Rob Mullane was the community development director. And we set up a committee to identify the sites of merit because we had been before the council and the council said, you know, just tell us which of the buildings that you think are historic. So the HPC formed the subcommittee. It had myself, David Mason, Rob Mullane, Terry Hill, and I can't remember if there was somebody else. And we went through and identified a list of about 26, 27 buildings. And those are the recommended sites of merit because they've never been actually approved by the council. But we held two, when I was on the HPC, we held two public hearings, invited all the property owners to come to those meetings and talk about their buildings and talk about their concerns. So there was a long vetting process that took place, and I feel fairly confident that those are sites that are truly historic and part of the story of the downtown. And they're all shown in a slideshow that's on the city website under, I can't remember what they're called on the city website, but there's a slideshow on there that identifies all of them. So we have those in a list. And then we just went through and identified other ones. And I learned a few things myself in doing this process. It was really a lot of fun, and I just got a subscription to newspapers.com that takes you back to the 1800s newspapers, and just had a lot of fun looking up various places and trying to track their history. So that's kind of the story of how this was created.
Great. Thank you, Craig. I'll turn it back to Gina. Do other commissioners have questions that Gina can answer for us?
No, I think it looks great. You know, it's very, very easy to visualize the entire picture. You know, it's good.
Will each one of those yellow ones have a historic report, or just, will it just be an overall historic report?
No, quite a few of them do have historic reports, but most of them do not. But they're ones that we did research on, and they are talked about in the history books. They are definitely part of the story of Ojai, and several of them are part of these sites of merit that were vetted. I forget how many years ago it was by the commission.
And in the Google document that we'll be sharing in a future meeting, it will give is all the information that we can find on these properties. You will have links, you'll have information of where we found the information and why we believe that they are worthy of being contributing properties to this vision.
Just to add on to that, we're fortunate. I've thanked Sherry before, but I'll thank her again that with the landmark list that the City of Ojai website on the HPC, all but I think 2 of the properties have a hyperlink that will take you to the historic resource report that was put together. That property was landmarked.
That's good.
The other thing is that we have, with the cooperation of, say, Santa Buenaventura and other entities that have had historical reports done in the city, we have gone to them and asked them if they would be willing to provide copies. So we have some more historical reports for properties for whatever the owner, whatever purpose the owner requested them. So we have that. And then, of course, we have all of the different opportunities that Craig mentioned, especially I have a newspaper archive report because I do family history, and it's amazing what is on there. And Craig has brought us some real wonderful historical nuggets that he has found in that too. So thank you, Gina. Thank you, Craig. Any other questions?
I have one real quick for Craig. This is Bill Wyrick.
Yes, thank you, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Craig, my memory must, obviously, I'm getting older. I'm talking about the funeral home on the, then the theater and now the Hit Vegan. I thought I remembered some sort of report on that building at one point. Is my memory just completely wrong?
On which building? The old funeral home?
Yeah,
The
Corner
Montgomery
of
House?
Montgomery, yeah.
yeah, just curious. I thought I remembered reading some or seeing some kind of reference to a report on that building at one point.
Reardon Funeral Home, that's what it was, yeah.
That's the corner of Montgomery and
Matilaha.
Matilaha, next to
Mhm.
next to 203.
Yeah, now we did put the 203, which is the Montgomery home, and that was the funeral home for many, many years before they.
Oh, okay. That's probably where I'm confused. Okay.
And they built the modern building next to it, which we didn't put as historic, so it's still gray.
Okay.
Uh,
Excuse me.
Bless you. Anything else, Bill? Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
No, I now I know the source of my confusion in my memory. Thank you, Craig. I turned to Craig a lot to eliminate confusion in my memory.
I think Tina pointed out when the three of us were looking at these charts and then looking, had Google Earth open on my screen while we were talking. We were like, what the heck is that? And so it's been a fun venture. And yes, as you said, we have Craig, our go-to guy. That's been very much.
There's some of the properties that it's like that one guy says, I know it's true, I just can't prove it yet, you know? And for example, the Barbara Bowman shop and the Marsh Gourmand, those two little stores that are up the street from the
Post office.
theater, those clearly have some kind of historical sense to them, but I just haven't been able to find anything on them yet. Same with the building where Bliss Yogurt is. There's just a few little ones there that are still works in progress. So if David Mason were here, we'd be able to go in and ask him and he'd give us the whole history, but we don't have that, unfortunately.
Yep.
And that's why the numbers are numbered the way they are. So we could, if we cannot justify it, if we cannot find the history, then the number goes away and it turns gray. Because the idea is we are not in a position to ask city council for a lot of funding to make this happen. And so it would be a better idea to let go of something we can't get information on rather than let go of the whole dream of getting this done for our 100th. So it's
question. I have a question about the theater. Why is not that whole corner on Ojai Avenue and Signal yellow for the theater? Why is there an orange block? It looks like it says 110 in the little gray spot.
110 is the theater.
Yeah.
That's what we landmarked. We didn't landmark.
But I thought the
the
theater
rest.
went all the way down. What's the one next to it? I can't read it. It looks like 221, 231.
That gray one, you mean? The gray one is that new 2-story little house that's right in the middle of that block, south
On
of
the other side of there's like a drive-through place.
Yeah, it's just a house. It has a store down below and a living quarter up above, and that's fairly recent.
I think
And-
she's talking about 221, the L-shaped building that's
Oh, well,
yellow.
that building, actually, I think that might be one property is the reason it is. And that house that's on the corner there, that's across the street from the festivals and across from the park, that one a case may be able to be made for that one. I went to a talk at the museum where J.J. Burke, who was one of the kind of founding fathers of Ojai, he developed the movie theater back in 1914, and that was his house for many, many years. And then later it became the Krishnamurti Foundation. Now I think it's a private home. But I can only assume from the map that must be on one big piece of property that Barbara Bowman owns that extends from that corner and has that house on.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I couldn't tell that it was one property because I know there are several buildings there. So, just.
Because, on Topa Topa Street there's a little gate that you can enter into a big parking area back there. And
Yeah,
I remember one year we were doing an event of some kind and we got permission from Barbara Bowman to use that parking area. So I imagine she owns that big piece of property. I don't know for sure, but
yeah, no, she does. Now it makes
She
sense.
does.
I
Yep.
knew about that, but I couldn't tell from the L shape that it was, that piece of property because there's so many
Yeah.
little buildings there.
Like I said, it was tempting to just do it by building, but then it was like I wanted to stay consistent with the city maps that I've received, so we're all talking the same language, and that's by property address. I mean,
No, it's great. It makes a lot more sense looking at it like this, It's just easier to visualize the entire thing.
I think we all wanted to include City Hall in it, but that would just involve taking in so many non-contributing buildings to make it have a boundary that,
yeah, we had six
It's
blocks
worth it.
of non-contributing that we just couldn't justify it. I mean, this was actually Monday that we finally just made the call to take it off because it was just too much to make the justification for that landmark. So
And
it's
then-
landmark.
The
I think
original
another
city hall. Isn't the original city hall over where the World University used to be?
well, that was one, yeah, was where the World University. In fact, that's one of the reasons we put that as potentially historic. That was originally the Baptist church, which was very important in the early days at the turn of the century. They tore the church itself down. That's now the parking lot there, and but left all the outbuildings, which became the city hall. And then it was the World University for many years, which was quite an organization there. So yeah, it was a city hall. Before that, the city hall was over where the Board of Realtors building
Oh, so
is.
it's moved around quite a bit.
Yeah, it's moved around. It started out in that old bank building in the arcade. That was the first city hall.
Oh.
Yep.
And then we had that World University and then,
And then had the gift from the family.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite a gift.
Yeah.
Quite a gift. Okay, the other thing we mentioned, and we've talked about this, and we have Councilman Wyrick here, but depending, of course, upon COVID guidance, if possible, between now and the time when the 100th anniversary takes place in August, we would ask, if appropriate, if safe, if timely, to have a joint meeting with the city council so we could just lay this out and share it with them. So that's
Yeah, get with James and Mayor Sticks about it.
okay. Yeah,
They handle the agenda. So yeah.
Yeah, I
Great.
was about to say the same thing. Thank you. It would be, yeah, you definitely want to have a conversation with James. on
Okay.
that.
I'll do that. Okay, great. Any other comments?
thanks
Gina?
for all your work, you guys, Gina and
Yeah, great
Right.
job, guys. Jeez.
Craig.
Yes. Thank you both very much. Okay, let's see. Discussion items current downtown. Any future agenda items? Lucas?
Yeah, so if you're looking at your agenda and you're following this, we're on to item 4, informational items, future agenda items. And at that time, when we sent out the agenda, there were no items that we saw in the foreseeable future that were going to be ready. I know Brian and I have had, Chair Akins and I have had several conversations about items that are in the hopper, out on corrections, and awaiting revisions to come back. And just recently this week, we've got two projects that actually potentially are moving forward. One that would, I don't want to necessarily specifically identify them by address yet, but one that would have a Mills Act moving forward. It looks like they've got the information to us for us to move forward with a Mills Act contract. And it's already a historically designated property, so it would be a Mills Act in favor of that. The second would be an actual historic landmark designation. Kind of an interesting piece of property. It's actually a modern style home. So you can expect both of those to be on the agenda for our next meeting.
Great, great. Thank you, Lucas. So, okay, commissioner comments. Anybody have any commissioner comments?
No?
Okay, I do. Just an update. As you know, we're down to 4 members. We have 3 of our commissioners that are out of term. And so I asked, turns out it was last Friday, I was talking with Gail. I had signed my 700 form, but apparently not mailed it in. So I took the opportunity to ask her if there were any reappointments of our 3 out-of-date commissioners and on replacing Thais. And she said, no update on the reappointments and the replacement. However, we're in process. So I just wanted to pass that along. And that is all I have. Anything else we need to bring up?
So I think there are 2 people who have applied for the commissioner spots.
That's what I've heard.
So is there any kind of date about when they're going to be interviewed and we can move forward?
Cindy, that's why I asked the question. I knew I had heard that there were 2 candidates.
Yeah.
And so that's why I asked Gail. So the time frame is up to I guess the council, the mayor and the.
Yeah, so I would continue to ask for updates from Gail. She can continue to provide that information. At this point, I can't even provide an update, not until that's all been settled. There's some work she's got to do on her end before we can be moved forward. So I'd say I can't report on it. It would be it's a Gail Davis needs to be reporting on that. So
Okay, yeah, and again I asked her and she got right back to me. So
good.
And so I could provide that to everyone.
But Lucas, do you know if is there a window of time for applicants and then the window closes and they start interviewing, or is it just sort of open-ended?
I believe there was a window of opportunity, but check with Gail because she may have had a hard date for closure, or is still accepting applications. I would check with her on that.
Okay, thanks.
I do have one item that I wanted to talk about tonight.
Yep.
Under planning report, and
Okay.
that was last night's visioning workshop for the
Oh,
general plan update.
Thank you.
I know that I saw one commissioner there, Chair Akins. Thank you for attending and providing feedback. I want to encourage the rest of the commission to gear up. This is not the only workshop that you'll be hearing about this general plan update. There will be 2 other workshops that are going to be forthcoming. After last night's, I would call it a very spirited, wonderful, informational piece and getting a lot of really good feedback from the community. I mean, we had over 120 people, individuals of the community that signed up for the workshop. We had 90 plus in attendance at one point, coming in and out of the virtual meeting. So I was very encouraged to hear that and see that last night as well. I was a little bit nervous, and I think in talking with James before the meeting, and even the consultant, I just wasn't sure how well the committee was going to embrace a virtual format, kind of a virtual town hall, if you will, and it was well received. It blew me away in terms of the individuals that were there last night. So some were familiar faces, some were not. So it was encouraging to see that as well. So I encourage you as a commission, this is your opportunity. The general plan comes up once every 25 years. In our case, it happens to be over 30 years for a lot of these elements. So it doesn't come up very often. So this is your opportunity to voice your opinions, to infuse a vision, and to get some perspective and some responses from either myself or the consultants. So
When is the next meeting going to be?
the next workshop has not been scheduled at this point, but it is, I think we can expect it within the next couple of months.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Lucas, is there a video of last night's meeting on the city website?
Excellent question.
Yes,
There
there
will be.
is.
Yeah, we recorded it last night, and we'll be posting it on the general plan updates website. So
It already
expect
is.
that.
It's
Oh,
posted.
Oh, it is already.
It had
Well,
people-
portion of it is the
The whole
portions
meeting.
that have the breakouts will be provided in the near future as well.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
So, I just want to put my endorsement in, since I was there for the 2 hours last night. It already had a in the afternoon 2-hour Zoom meeting on strategic planning for the museum. So after that, I took a nap. Didn't really, but to get ready for this. Again, it was 2 hours. It passed very quickly. It was interesting, informative, participative, with a wide variety of community. Again, as Lucas said, people that we know and people that we don't know, people from all levels, all interests in the community. They broke out into, I think it was 4 different sessions. And in each session, there was an agenda, there was a clock. We would get little things. Hi, it's been 20 minutes. You have 40 minutes left. And then onwards, all the way down to the countdown. We all watched it go from 118 seconds down to 0. And it ended. So again, fabulous. A way to not only share what your interests are, but also to get, as Lucas said, a thermometer of the interest of certain items in the community. And it was a whole breadth, a whole width of community interest. So on the next one, I would encourage folks to be in there and be in attendance. Even though they're not covering historical as one of the sections in the general plan update, anything that happens in this community affects the whole community from a historic standpoint. And as Councilman Wyrick pointed out, I felt like that was a little bit of my job last night. However, I was talking to Lucas that when they got to all the great things they were going to do to the Nordhoff Grammar School, I had 2 hands over my mouth, not to say, that's a landmark. So it was great. So anything else?
Brian, what were all the great things they're gonna do to the landmark?
Well, they talked about different, all kinds of different issues. They had sections. So they had the, I think 4 different sections, village mixed use, which is the area that is north of the downtown. And that's a place like Bart's Books on different things that are being done with that difference. There was the corridor. So a lot of discussion on how to move people back and forth. You know, whether it's parking, whether it's automobiles, some good points. There's, of course, a electric vehicle push that's going on. We have the charging stations, a lot of discussion. Kathy Nolan said, well, I'd like to take it one step further. I would like to measure it from vehicle miles that are, you know, that, and measuring that and in trying to find a way we can, you know, what we can do. There's differences of opinions that came up on, do we have too many hotels or too many restaurants, or do we not have enough restaurants? Difference of opinion. There's a difference of opinion on, is there too much traffic? Is there too little traffic? One of the ideas that came up was putting in parking meters, because what they found was that employees of restaurants are out using the parking spaces for the same people who would park there and then spend money in the restaurants. So one of the ideas was parking meters. Again, you know, what happens with this, who knows? Neighborhoods, what to do with in neighborhoods, accessory dwelling units, building out within neighborhoods, There was discussion, one lady, good for her. She was essentially a representative of the homeless community. She wanted to make sure that they were considered and that their needs were treated with respect. Kudos for her. A lot often overlooked part of our segment of our community. Rent control, not rent control.
But
And
specifically the Nordoff Grammar School, you mentioned it?
yeah, because the Nordoff Grammar School is looked at as the answer for everything. And so there was a discussion, as there has been a discussion by the people that have an art interest on housing for artists, for the people who have education interest on the housing for teachers, swimming pool. You know, what could be done with the Nordoff Grammar School property that would again answer all of the needs.
Yeah, and just to fill in, Brian, I think there was one more piece. There was the Bryant Street industrial area
Oh, yeah.
that was discussed as well last night. That was another visioning. And remember, it's visioning, so it's not necessarily saying specifically with this piece of property. I think it's kind of looking holistically, kind of as a bigger ideas that are going to be then transformed into policies and more micro discussion. It was kind of a macro discussion, a bigger discussion last night about bigger items. And
Yeah,
They
so
talk about, oh, go ahead.
just an interesting term, and I didn't know what it meant, but they were talked about, and they were the four of them that, and Lucas mentioned the fourth one, characteristic areas. And that, again, that went to the village mixed use, the neighborhood, the industrial park, and the corridor. So what were you going to say, Valerie?
Just wondered if anybody brought up the traffic calming in front of Nordoff High School and down that whole area.
You know, the only time the ATP came up was when I asked actually what turns out to be, I'd forgotten this, the ATP for downtown. Because if you remember, there was a lot of work done for downtown. And I was asking about that, and they told me, well, that's one of the phases of ATP.
Okay.
Lucas, I don't remember the ATP in high school being brought in front of the high school being brought up other than that. Am I wrong?
no, that was it. That was, you're talking about at that specific time bringing up that specific point.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for for the entire breakout group.
It's supposed to be a temporary thing, but the high school hasn't been open, so there's no way to know.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah,
open.
it's temporary. It's a demonstration for right now.
There was a lot of talk about the need to build our alternative transportation infrastructure for away from cars and for bicycles, personal transportation vehicles, and pedestrians.
Okay.
And so that was sort of part of that overall mega discussion, was building our bicycle transportation infrastructure.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is and Bill, this is you're spot on. There was 5 different breakout groups. This one in particular, which I happened to be in for at least half of it, brought up the ATP project because it's citywide. I mean, it covers the entire stretch of Ojai Avenue, so it was worthy of bringing up, but trying to stay away from the projects that are potentially going on and thinking about kind of the future
Right.
of it. I think that's the whole point of the visioning.
The macro.
Because
Yeah.
people can certainly get stuck, residents certainly can get stuck on what particular project is happening at that time versus
Right.
thinking, 20, 25 years out.
Okay.
I do want to point out one other kind of thing that was a bit different and purposely so, that I saw Bill Souza and Randy and Ryan and the mayor, could have been in others. Again, hard to see everybody that was there, even on a TV screen. But they were essentially muzzled only because I think 2 reasons. One is because they can't participate in a single meeting, and Councilman Wyrick can tell me this, but the other I think was so that they weren't perceived as having setting a direction in the discussion. And I thought they were amazing. It would have been difficult for me. uh, d-
Our job was to listen. Our job was to listen.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, our job was to listen, Brian. You know, this is supposed to be a community driven process,
Yes.
you know.
And
And we've
thought,
said this. Yeah, I mean, even from the it's the listen and learn philosophy, and that's kind of what's been going on even with working with the consultants up to this point, is doing a lot of listening, learning about what the community's needs are, what some of the pros and the cons are in terms of the community moving forward or staying where it's at. Quite happy with some of the stuff that's going on right now. Why change it? So a lot of that listening and learning going on, and I think in talking with, I want to say, almost every council member and the mayor last night, everybody was doing a lot of, so think of your brain as a sponge, right? You're absorbing a lot of information last night. So there's a lot of that going on for sure.
and before we conclude, I do want to give one shout out to someone who I thought did heroic duty because I was watching her in real time. Sherry was typing out notes in real time.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Good job, Sherry.
It's fun.
Brian, can I just make 2 quick comments?
Please. Yeah. So turn it over to Councilman comments.
Very quickly. One, please do not discount the importance of shifting CEQA evaluation from level of service to vehicle miles traveled. That has been adopted formally. That's an issue that Kathy brought up. It's been brought up it's officially been adopted by the Ventura County Transportation Commission. And to boil it down, what it means, level of service is the kind of criteria that's driven sprawl. Vehicle miles traveled is the kind of criteria that fights against sprawl. And, you know, I mean, I can't, you know, understate the importance of that shift in criteria. So now, you know, it's really important. And I think we fully incorporated the VMT, Lucas, in our CEQA evaluations and not LOS anymore.
Yes, and we'll be doing that with this general plan update as well.
Right, and it's really important because you're thinking globally. Then you're saying, you know, for example, affordable housing can reduce vehicle miles traveled as a positive because you're reducing the need to commute. Whereas under the old LOS criteria, you could say, oh, well, we can't have affordable housing because of the traffic implication on level of service. It's important. And it's really, anyway, enough said on that. And one of the things that I'm hoping council will take up and also as part of the general plan update is that we have some discretion over what criteria and thresholds we use for CEQA evaluation at the local level. And we've never really exploited that in terms of service to the character of our community. And it's something we need to really look at, in my opinion. The second thing is the implications of this group are so important. And one thing you may not have thought about, but the fact that you landmarked City Hall and the grounds is really going to help us do what should have happened already. And that's to correct the error, I think, and the old housing, the existing housing element that put in as available for development, available for affordable housing construction, part of Libby, you know, what I consider part of Libby Park behind City Hall. That the fact that you landmarked, and I think that where we're moving is that will be not part of the new housing element. And that's really important to be honest and direct about those designations as available for affordable housing for compliance under the housing element. It's going to require us to make some difficult decisions about what we substitute, but it's the right direction to move. And so the work you did is going to definitely help us in that direction by the fact that you did landmark, not just the buildings, but the grounds of City Hall. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Especially on the level of service and the vehicle miles traveled. I had never heard that before, and it's very important because it will be a key part of our general plan update. See, so in my breakout session, and the one item I forgot and very important, we had Jamie Bennett and is it Christopher Ronch?
Danch. With a
Dance.
D,
Danch.
like David.
Oh, okay. So then they both contribute a lot to this. It was economy. What are we going to do to be able to have jobs in our city so people can stay here and work rather than having to do that drive in and out of the valley every day. So there was quite a bit of discussion on that, especially when it came to the industrial park. So that's another key element that, you know, people are talking about all the time because it's just so important. So I don't have anything else. Do I need a motion to,
I have one comment.
Tina, please?
Just on a clarification. So a year ago in March, we had our planned joint council with our meeting with joint council, and because of COVID, we got turned, had to stop, had to be canceled. When we're talking about going to council with our historic downtown, we're talking about doing that meeting, the joint council, not like a full council meeting. We want the historic, we're talking about a joint council meeting first, correct?
We're talking about a joint council meeting as the next meeting we would like to have with the city council to talk about the historic downtown district.
Okay, that's, I just wanted clarification that it wasn't going to be part of their meeting. It was part of a joint meeting with both of us. Okay. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, do we need a motion to end or do we just end?
You can just end.
Yeah,
Bang your
just-
gavel.
Okay, we're ended. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Eddie?
Thank you.
Right.